Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. Today I have with me Andy Blank, N2NT. I was having a recent conversation with the contest crew about the CQ Worldwide CW contest this past weekend, and Andy's name came up. Andy is a longtime contester. He did a great job in the recent contest, and I'm looking now at the 3830 scores, and it's interesting. The top 5 contesters in the single operator all band high power category are E77DX Emir, who was on the show, scored 21 million points. The next is N2NT Andy from St. Kitts. The next is Kevin Stockton N5DX from Cayman Brock. The next is CT1ILT Philippe Lopez, who's also been on the show. And then the next VE3DZ from Martinique Yuri, who has been on the show in the past. The real story here that I want to get into is the second, third, and fourth place competitors all scored more than 10,000 QSOs, which is pretty remarkable. And I want to hear more about that from Andy. So with that lead in, Andy, thank you for joining me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
So I understand you've been to St. Kitts for years contesting. Tell me about that. How did that get started? And tell me about that station.
Yeah, it's a long story. Probably take up the entire time if I told you everything. But it started in 2006. A friend of mine in the Frankfurt Radio Club, who's now deceased, W2 Oscar X-Ray, he was Victor 47 Kilo Papa, a very famous call sign back in the day. He had a huge signal on 160 and a very deliberate operating style that if you wanted to work him, you had to have a lot of patience. But Alex was a good guy. He invited me down. I got to do my first CQ Worldwide in 2006. I did very well at the time. Times have completely changed. The operating style of the contest has changed. But back then, I think it was between 6,000 and 7,000 QSOs, which was very good. Alex was there with me, set up the station. And my most vivid memory was him sleeping in the bunk behind me for about 30 hours of the 48. So anyway, it was a lot of fun, and he invited me back, and another very close friend of mine, Joe Brew, K3 November, Mexico. He was involved with Alex at the time. They did a lot of work on the station. But over the years, there were some problems. There was a break-in, burglary more than once, and we abandoned it for about 3 years, and I decided that that location was too good to pass up. So I did a lot of work to rebuild it with a bunch of my friends. A lot of the people you've mentioned have been there, and right now it's in fabulous shape. It has a very good set of antennas for the high bands. The low bands have always been a problem because of the wind up there. It's on top of a 1,100-foot hill, and it's very exposed to the weather. So it's hard to keep wires up. It's hard to keep Yagis up. It's hard to keep towers up, but we do the best we can.
So the CQ Worldwide CW contest I know is really important to you, and I think that you've been down there a number of times. But tell me, what does the CQ Worldwide CW mean to you?
I would say it's the most elite contest of the year. I think a lot of the people you've spoken to would agree. It's grown over the years. I think I just looked at the log submission today, or tomorrow is the last day for log submission for this year, and it's close to 10,000 logs, which is huge. It's gone up every year. So considering that people say CW is dead, I don't think so. It's very much alive and well. For me, it's been my favorite contest for a long time. I'm a member of the CQ Worldwide Contest Committee. I run the CQ 160 contest. CQ has always been, of course, it's not technically run by CQ anymore, but the name will always live in perpetuity.
And Andy, I know that you had a team at V47T, very successful team in the CQ Worldwide Sideband contest, but I also understood from Randy K5ZD, who was part of that team, that in part you do the contest from St. Kitts, so you know the station is ready for CW. Is that correct?
Well, that is part of it. What happened was over the years, it's become so complicated to keep that station going by myself because I'm not retired. I have a real job. I have a real station of my own, which you see in back of me. Maintaining that and a station in the Caribbean is not possible for one regular person, I think. So what I've done over the years is try to invite as many contesters as I can. And luckily I know quite a few of the top guys over the years, and I could roll off a list of famous call signs, but a lot of people have been there, helped us out. We've done a lot of tower work. Randy has been a big part of that in the past few years. Really, it's come a long way since Randy got involved because he's really motivated to go there as well as I am. It's hard to find people to go there multiple times because there is no amenities. It's not like going to a hotel in the Caribbean or one of these. I know you did an interview, or maybe that was not you, but J68 Hotel Zulu. I watched that video recently, and that looks like a beautiful place to operate. A nice pool and all these things. Nice house. You won't get that at Victor 47 Tango. You'll get a shack on top of a hill, no bathroom, barely running. There is no running water. You have to bring your own in. But the shack is quite comfortable, believe it or not. It's air conditioned. Everybody that goes there has a great time.
So, Andy, if you would, tell me more about that station. You gave me an idea of its remoteness and how high it is on the hill. But what is actually there for antennas and for equipment? And do you bring equipment with you also when you're traveling there?
Because of the burglaries we had back in 2010, I think we had to stop. We had to do a lot of work to fortify the building. It's boarded up with a iron gate, and it's really there's a lot of blocks on it now. But since then, we've had no problems at all. I've had to restock the station with tools and a generator and all that. But over the years, I've managed to get everything we need down there. Basically, I haven't left equipment except for amplifiers because they're so hard to bring. Until recently, I've left the K3 now. So there is one K3, and there are, in various state of repair, 4 Titan amplifiers, Ten-Tec Titans, because they're easy to fix, they're easy to get, they're cheap, and for instance, in the last SSB contest, when Randy was there with K4 Zulu Whiskey and Kilo Mike 3 Tango, we did a multi-2, which I was very afraid of, that the weak link is the amplifiers. And we had 2 Titans. We went through, the 2 RF decks survived, but 2 power supplies blew up in the middle of the contest. So I vividly remember the panic. I was laying outside in the hammock, relaxing, and one of the guys came out and said, "There's a big bang inside." So
I remember Randy telling this story that you were down to your last power supply, so thank God you didn't lose that one. But also, it's notable that even though it's not a resort, you did have that hammock outside that sounds like it came in handy.
Yeah, that was a new addition. It was big because there's only one, I wouldn't call it a bed. There's a double-decker wooden platform, I would call it. But there is an air mattress that's extremely comfortable. But if you're going to sleep, you're going to sleep in the shack with all the noise. So I decided to try one of these hammocks. I bought it on Amazon and put it outside, and it was really comfortable. It was beautiful to sleep out under the stars and look up at the tower. So that was good.
Seems to me it's a good incentive to stay awake and keep operating. That's probably part of the strategy.
Well, we had enough people on sideband where there wasn't a problem. Everybody got a good amount of operating time in. So
Andy, coming back to the CQ Worldwide this past weekend, did you go down with a plan? Did you think that you were going to achieve 10,000 QSOs?
This has been a goal of mine since, I'm going to say, 2BSIQ was invented. I think you've probably discussed that many times on the channel. But that was a game changer for rate, QSO totals. But with Dan and Chris doing it from their stations, it's always been, I've always been lagging behind a good number of QSOs. So what do you do when you're behind? You have to catch up somehow, and the best way to do that is to ask them what they're doing and try to copy it or find new ways to improve yourself. My problem is I'm not young anymore. I'm 67, and teaching an old dog new tricks is tough. But I've been doing it now for quite a while. So this year, I just decided to practice more. There's lots of ways to practice. If you read Kevin's N5DX, who is at ZF5T, we're virtually tied, by the way, on if you look at 3830. He has a whole regiment routine of exercise and practice that he uses, which is very similar to what I did. Of course, he's much younger, so his is probably at a higher level, but you can definitely, at any age, you can practice for this. You can do Morse Runner, you can do Rufus, Roof-Z, however you pronounce it. CW Practice is available out there. You just have to find it and use it. And it helped a lot. It really did.
I know this is a topic that's come up a lot with Chris, KL9A, and Dan Craig, N6MJ. One of the things that I know Dan in particular has talked about is actually listening to old tapes. Is that something you had done?
I tried to listen to some of Dan and Chris's run, and I have some of my own, but I find it really difficult to follow because you don't hear your own side tone. Maybe some of them have tapes that do. And in fact, I've got a request in an email this morning about someone who wants a tape, which I can gladly give. But if you listen to it, it's just call signs coming at you, bing, bang, flip-flopping on each ear. It's hard to follow. I found that actually doing the practice with Morse Runner, and a big practice thing for me is doing the CWT sessions. Every Wednesday, there's 4 CWT 1-hour sessions that you can do basically whatever you want. It's not a real contest. And I practice 2BSIQ every time with that, and it's really helped me improve. Bud AA3B, who's the winner of the low power portion of the CQ Worldwide Code, he's probably one of the best in the world at this, and he does every CWT except the 0700 one. He has to sleep sometimes.
So Andy, you went down there with a plan to do 10,000 QSOs. You mentioned that it's been a long time goal. I'm curious what other plan you had put in place. And before you answer that, I presume with the amount of experience you've had doing the CQ Worldwide from St. Kitts, you're pretty familiar of where you need to be and when, but also being down there for the phone contest just a couple weeks prior, that probably helped. But did you have a pretty clear band plan going into this that you were going to try to adhere to?
No, I wouldn't say a band plan. It's pretty obvious where you need to be. And the beauty of 2BSIQ is that you're on 2 bands at once. And there's only a handful of hours where you have to make any band change decisions. And that would be more based on multipliers, what you need at the time. But 10,000 was a goal. It wasn't a plan. I didn't really have a plan to get there other than to maximize my rate. I would say that the only thing I did different was try to almost ignore multipliers. One of the nice things about being in V4 is I'm usually the only V4. So everybody needs me. And, only the single ops will have to search for me. Everybody else is on the cluster, and you have RBN and skimmers, and you're found instantly. There's this one station, I'm trying to remember his call. I think it was one of the EA8s, but I'd call literally one CQ in 3 seconds, and he would be calling me. I don't know how he found me so quickly, but you don't really have to have a plan for multipliers when you're the only one. But maximizing my cues was my plan, and it seemed to work out. At one point on Sunday, I didn't think I was going to make it. It got very slow. I think there was 1 hour where my rate dropped below 100, which is almost like crawling in this thing. But then the bands opened up, 10 and 15 opened up to the U.S., and the floodgates opened again, so I was able to do it.
And one of the topics that comes up a lot during my interviews is the contest online scoreboard, and I know the contest crew are huge believers in it. Were you monitoring that during the contest, or did you prefer just to do your thing?
It's an interesting, interesting topic because I see a lot of people arguing about it on email reflectors, and I've been on the scoreboard now for 3 years, I'd say. The interesting thing is that there was no internet for me up at that place up until about 3 years ago. I could use my mobile hotspot, but it was, data limited. I never used internet all those years because I was single op. I didn't need it. When we started to do the multi-ops, we needed it, so we had to come up with something. But the internet was there for me this time to be on the scoreboard, and that was it. And it was one way. I'm an old school guy. I told everybody this after the fact. They didn't believe me, but I never looked at it once. I got a text from Chris, KL9A, somewhere around 21 Zulu, I think, or maybe it was 22 Zulu, when I crossed 10,000 on the scoreboard, and he said something like I was doing great, or, and that was the only indication I had of how I was doing. And the reason is, I don't mind that everybody sees my score. If you want to look at it, I wasn't trying to win the world. I knew that Brasso at E77DX at D4DX, he was going to win. There was no question unless something went wrong. He's in every QSO for him is 3 points, basically. But I was trying to win the Caribbean because there were 4 stations down there, basically, that were competing against each other: ZF5T, V47T, 8P5A, and TO4A. And that was my goal, and I figured if I looked at the scoreboard and I saw that I was behind, it would take the wind out of my sails, and I wouldn't concentrate as well. So, it's a personal thing, but I don't mind being on the scoreboard at all. I think it's the way to go at this time. And I should mention that my buddy, also NP4Z, has been a big supporter of the scoreboard, getting everyone on it. He was operating at KP2B, assisted, and he was another one that texted me right at the end to congratulate how well I was doing. So I heard it was a great show. I called K3NM, who was down with Randy and I to rebuild the tower about 3-4 years ago in the WPX, and he can't make the trip anymore, unfortunately. But he said that he stopped operating the contest in the last half hour and just watched the scoreboard of me and Kevin going back and forth. So that's how exciting it was.
Well, first of all, I think it's smart that you understand your own psychology, that you paying attention to the scoreboard might get in the way. But I'll also second this idea as a spectator, as somebody who's knows a lot of call signs now. I've interviewed a lot of you guys. It was a lot of fun to pay attention all weekend long, and I wasn't glued to it every minute, but I'd keep checking in every couple hours just to see how you guys are doing, and others that I knew. And it does make the hobby, I think, a little more interesting to watch that battle versus just waiting a couple months and seeing what the official score is. So I've got to ask you, though, when you finally did see the scoreboard, were you surprised to see that Kevin Stockton was, I think he had, well, I'm looking at it now, you had 10,264 QSOs. He's right behind you with 10,198. And, of course, Philippe, CT1ILT at 10,450. So 3 people over 10,000. And as you already pointed out, Kevin Stockton is just 40,000 overall points behind you. Were you surprised to see how close he was?
No, I was surprised that I was that close to him because he He had contacted me, I would say, 3 weeks prior to the contest, and we chat once in a while. I was good friends with his father as well. I am good friends with his father, K5GO, ZF9, CW. We chatted about this and that, but then he just mentioned in passing that he was going to do this from ZF5T, and in prior years he's been winning this contest from New York, operating at N2QV station, and he's become one of the top operators in the world. And he's young and he's motivated. So the great thing that he has, sort of an advantage, is that he can just come down there and his dad can set up the station and he can roll in there and operate and roll out, which is, I'm kind of envious of that, but it's not possible for me. I have no father to set up the station, and I have, everything has to be done by me all week long, and it's tiring. At my age, it's not that easy anymore. You go up and down towers and all that. So I was thrilled that that we were neck and neck. I didn't know it until the end, and also it doesn't really matter what you're looking at there on 3830. It doesn't matter what the claim scores are. I noticed that when I redid my log, I had to update the country file. I gained 2 multipliers, but it comes down to log checking because accuracy matters. So we'll see. It'll be checked, and it's not going to take that long, thankfully.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it all washes out, but still, congratulations, Andy. I mean, it's a hell of an effort, and as you just put in perspective, you're down there making sure the station is put together, staying motivated by yourself. So congrats to you. I'm curious, Andy, what advice you might have for beginner or intermediate contesters. And I'm not talking about contesters, obviously, at Dan, Chris, Randy's level or your level. But what about the intermediate contester that has been watching this show, the contest crew, and they're motivated? What would you advise to them?
That's a very good question. There's so many resources available nowadays, but the best way is to try to get involved with someone who's at a higher level. So if you can find in your local contest club somebody who's got a good station, somebody who's looking for operators, that's the way to learn. You operate multi-op with maybe do there's a lot of contests to choose from, but do a multi-single, multi-two. It's hard to get into a multi-multi because they're operating at another level. I do a lot of my operating at K3 Lima Radio, but he tries to keep the same crew of operators, a core of operators, so it's a little hard to break into that. But if you could just find some station to learn. I have at the station you see behind me, while I was operating in St. Kitts, WW2Y was using my station here, and he loves the contest, but his level of operating, he wants to do either minimal SO2R or just straight running, which is fine. He had a very good score. There's another operator, KI7WX, Mark Curran, who is just getting back into contesting after many years of a layoff. And from operating with us, we've done a few multis here, and he's learned a ton. He's really motivated. He's building a station of his own at home, and he's been playing with Morse Runner. He's more of a sideband guy, but he's been practicing with Morse Runner, and he's told me that he's been able to get his CW speed up to run stations at over 100 an hour, which was not possible for him literally 6 months ago. So I think that's the best way, just to get involved with some people who have done this before.
So, Andy, you referenced your own station behind you. What do you have there in New Jersey?
It's a pretty good station. I've been blessed because over the years I've known so many people. I've been doing this since I was 15. I grew up in an apartment in Brooklyn, New York, and had absolutely nothing. No money, no antennas. So everything I have is I really appreciate. Over here in New Jersey, I have basically one big tower, 120 foot, 40 meter beam at the top, and a lot of Yagis down. There's two smaller towers, with one with a tri-bander, one with some auxiliary antennas, and a lot of wires. And it's a really competitive station, but it's in New Jersey, so it's not in what they call New Europe or New England, where Randy is. But he's moving, so he'll get his comeuppance from Ohio. So anyway, the station's very good. It requires a lot of maintenance, so I don't have the time for all this, but somehow I manage. I'm not sure I answered your question, Kevin.
You did partially. Yeah. I'm curious also, are you using K3s there in New Jersey?
Oh, yeah, there's a K3 and a K4 behind me. I bought the K4 this year. I'm not a K4 power user. I really wanted it to do remote, but you need two K4s to do remote properly, and I'm not going to buy another one anytime soon. I'm still waiting for Elecraft to come out with their what they call VK4 virtual K4 software, and they've been talking about it for a long time, but nothing's happened. So when they do that, I'm hoping to remote this station and even eventually V4, but it's really tough to do down there because of the logistics involved.
And what are you using for amps there in New Jersey?
Well, I'm going to give a free plug to 403A, my buddy Ranko. The PGXL amplifier is the one that I take down to V4 with me, and I just unpacked it right before our meeting here. It weighs exactly 50 pounds, fits in a suitcase. You can take it as luggage without it paying extra, and I've already done probably 10 full 48-hour contests with it. It's full SO2R in one package, and it works fantastic. I also have here an ACOM 2000 and an old Alpha 87, which I left for WW2Y to use while I was gone. I mean, they're great amplifiers too, but there's nothing like that PGXL. It just turns on and it works.
Got to say, that sounds like a commitment when you're packing up your 50-pound amplifier and putting it in checked luggage.
The other thing I was doing before I spoke to you was looking at new Samsonite luggage online, because it got beat up a little bit on the way back. There's a little bit of a dent in the case, so I think it's time for a new one.
So Andy, I'll let you go after this question, but I usually ask people how they got started in ham radio, and we kind of skipped over that because I wanted to hear about the contest. But you mentioned you were licensed, I think, at 15. What motivated you to get licensed at 15?
I just was always interested in electronics. We didn't have any money, so for me, I had to scrounge together enough money from my mother to buy an HW16. And I put an antenna on my apartment building roof, and I got a lot of trouble for that. There were many years of apartment dweller stories until I was able to leave.
And when did you get into contesting?
Almost immediately. Some of the guys that I knew as a novice, one of my best friends then, WN3SWF, is now K3UA, and we're still together. We operated K3LR together. And K3LR I met back then as well. And I have to mention, I didn't know him then, but one of the guys who helps me here at the home station and operates at LR with us, N2NC, he is the brains behind a lot of what I do. He has over the years helped me in this station and built an entire VHF station in my basement. This station you see behind me is upstairs. This is all HF. And then there's another station downstairs, which is just VHF. And it's really a good station, complicated. He built his own amplifiers, and we have one tower dedicated just for VHF. So John has helped me out quite a bit, and he's threatening to leave, but I won't let him.
You need to hang on to people like that.
Yep.
Andy, I really appreciate you taking time the day after Thanksgiving to join me and talk about the CQ Worldwide. Congratulations on a great performance. Thank you.
I really appreciate that, Kevin. And yes, I'm thrilled. I just want to say that it's a whole different feeling when you make your goal. Usually when I leave, come home, I keep thinking about how can I fix what I did wrong and do it next year. Now my new goal is 11,000. You know, that's Chris and Dan territory, but that's what I'm going to shoot for next time. But it was a much better feeling coming on that plane home this time.
I've been talking to Andy Blank, N2NT. You should watch the official scores come out for CQ Worldwide CW to see where things shuffle out. As I mentioned, E77DX seems to be at the top of the pack. You'll stay there, but that's closely followed by Andy V47T and Kevin Stockton at ZF5T. Thanks again, Andy.
Thank you, Kevin.